Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. It is one of my favorite times of the year, man, and it's crazy to me that I got out the gate a little slow and was behind the 8 ball, because I'm usually in front of the 8 ball with this show. It's one of my favorite shows on television. I have an absolute ball watching it, and since having the channel, I get to have an absolute ball interacting with you guys in and around the show. And this year, Mr. Ryan Murphy's changing it up a little bit and purposely giving us 2 separate stories for a little bit of a double feature. And our first story dips its toe into the realm of vampires, sort of. Episode 2 puts a lot of clarity into what is going on in Provincetown and for Finn Whittrock and his family. And I tell you, episode 1 I dug. Episode 2, a bit of a step back for me, but also really solid as far as establishing everything we need to establish in this world and in this story. And I have a feeling that by the time we get to episode 3, man, we are going to be in a full-out sprint for the finish line, because shortened season to give you 2, or a regular season shortened story length to give us 2 of them. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat, we're getting ready to dive in spoiler free, and then a little spoilery into American Horror Story double feature part 1, Red Tide, episode 2. And this was part of a double feature premiere. We got a 2-hour premiere, 2 episodes. We just talked about episode 1 all on its own. If you want to see my non-spoiler and spoiler thoughts as well as reactions, you can check them out right up there. And for all you newbies to the channel in and around my American Horror Story coverage, if you're not sure how I do this, I tend to keep it one video, do non-spoiler stuff at the top, just real quick talk about the things that I like that were going on in the episode, show you my reactions, and then we dive into a full spoiler breakdown of the episode. So with episode 1 out of the way, we dive into episode 2, and again, one of the things that I love here is that this kind of feels like a long-form movie or story, you know, like to the point where like we pick up right where we ended episode 1. And mild spoilers, but for anybody who needs a little memory jog, even though we watched both of these episodes on week 1 because they came out for the premiere as a double. At the end of episode 1, Finn Whittrock pops a black pill that Evan Peters' character gives him to help him with his writer's block. His agent is on his ass about, knocking out this pilot, but a lot of weird crap is going on in Provincetown since him and his family, which is consisted of Lily Rabe, as well as Ryan Kira Armstrong, who plays their daughter Alma. And a lot of weird stuff. You had somebody chase the girls. Whitrock had to kill that dude, in the house. Like, there's just, the vibe in P-Town right now is not too kosher, and the family's getting ready to leave. But Grossman scares the living crap out of Whitrock for his career, that he pops this pill that Peter swears will unlock his, writer's block. So that's where we are when we dive into episode 2. We pick up right there in that moment as they're getting ready to leave. And the thing that I enjoy about this episode is Finn Whittrock himself in particular, pretty much the whole episode. He crushes this thing. What Murphy does with this second episode allows Whittrock to kind of go to a Jack Torrance shining place, where you have this person, he's trying to write, he's working on something, decided to go away from where he normally is to get peace and quiet and be able to focus, and in doing so kind of starts to go a little crazy. And while it's the hotel and the spirits in the hotel and things that are directly affecting Jack Torrance in The Shining, it's a little pill that it kind of sends Whittrock on this crazy journey in episode 2. And the stuff that I dig here, besides just Whittrock's performance, is that Murphy does a really good job after establishing where we are, the players that are involved, and the general story. Episode 2 allows you to crack now into the mythology of what's going on in Provincetown. We get to learn what the deal is with these, blood-sucking walkers. We find out why they can function in the sunlight, and why they seem a little off. And I love that, being that it's a shortened season, Murphy's not really trying to hold on to too many surprises or secrets. Like, he'll use it to his advantage in episode 1, and in episode 2 he's going to give you your answer, because you have to kind of move pretty quick here. And I appreciate the vampire take that he's taking on this part of the season. It was one of those things where, of the two stories, I was more excited for the Alien story, because while Aliens did feature in season 2, they were more of a, I don't want to say afterthought, but like they really kind of hit toward the end of the season, and there's just elements of the story that like clearly are hinting at aliens, but you never really dive into it. So you do something like Death Valley, where you could be in Area 51, and you could really go full boat into aliens. I was pretty pumped about that. Vampires? I was uneasy, because Hotel really crushed the vampire stuff. I mean, you're not going to top Lady Gaga as the queen. You know what I mean? Like, at least inside of American Horror Story. So to go back to vampires, I was a little hesitant at first. But seeing the approach that he's taking, I actually really dig it. I think it's kind of fascinating. And it creates a lot of moral dilemmas, right? Like, once you are turned into a vampire, whether it's willingly or not, you don't really have a get-out-of-jail-free card. Like, you're stuck. You're a vampire forever until someone puts a stake through your heart, or chops your head off, or turns you to dust, So, to take the concept of the vampire and tweak it the way that Murphy does, I really, really dug that stuff. And I like that we kind of get to find out more about that, and we get to kind of see Whitrock go on this kind of crazy little story journey that syncs up with things that go on with vampires, but play into the twist that Murphy has provided us here. So while I did enjoy episode 1 a little bit more, I do think you have some really nice things in this, specifically Whitrock's performance, the reveal as to what the Black Pill is, what it does, and how that ties into this vampire-type story that, Murphy's playing here. Really kind of sets up some interesting stuff, and I'm really fascinated to see where we go come episode 3. But from a non-spoiler standpoint, highlights, like I said, Whitrock. The score continues to be phenomenal. I love using Alma's violin. I really want to know if Ryan Kira Armstrong is playing that violin. It looks like she is. But using the strings at any point in time works really well, and I like that Murphy kind of plays with the strings in a way where like it plays into the scene if Alma is playing it, but then can take the beginning of her playing and turn it into a sequence and use that as the score. And then just your typical horror stuff. And your suspense scoring that comes in here plays really well as you kind of build out what's going on in the story. And the song choices, like I said, the soundtrack choices are always really good in AHS. Again, work really well here. You have some tunes that are easy to bop to. And the story just kind of allows its characters to be who they are. Like, I think by the time you get to the end of episode 2, you know who everybody truly is. And I think that's kind of a cool thing. So that's all I got on the non-spoiler side, which means it's time for a score, so let's get the C-Maniacs up. There they are. As I said, I didn't like this one quite as much as the first one, even though this one is a little bit more crazy, a little bit more deranged, and it does fill in all the blanks that we still had coming out of episode 1. I just thought episode 1 was put together a little bit tighter. This one really hinged on Whitrock's performance. Like, if Whitrock did not crush it, I don't think I would have enjoyed this episode as much. So because of that, I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5 C-Maniacs. We went 3.8 on the first episode, 3.5 here. Just a small, minor step back. I can't really put my finger on it, and maybe it's just the fact that like it was all Whitrock, and we didn't really have a ton for the others to do, and their performances maybe popped a little bit more in the first episode. But that's it, man. Those are all of my non-spoiler thoughts on episode 2 of American Horror Story Double Feature, Part 1, Red Tide. Now it's time to see my reaction. So let's take it away to the old past American Horror Story watching C-Man show you what he was looking at. Take it away, C-Man! Oh no, what is that guy using? Rat. Whoa! These pills are just... Oh, man!
Bet your softy dick feels nice and hard now, getting some of that sweet blood flow. Why'd you do that? You fuckface!
Sarah Paulson's nuts this season. Weird places this episode. Oh!
That's very cool. Did he like it?
He said yes.
Yeah. We're gonna
You gotta get that pill. Get some of that blood. You got nothing now.
We're going out to eat.
Nosferatu front teethers.
Enough talking. Mama's hungry.
Oh! Yeah, Daddy wants some.
How you feeling about her, handsome?
Better. Like I want to kill myself from guilt and shame. Better. Dr. Feldman.
That's right.
There she is.
Wow.
Billy.
Sexist month? Did you agree to never murder people and drink their blood too?
Oh no! Oh no.
Looking at top or bottom? Neither.
He wasn't supposed to kill anybody in Newtown. Oh man, don't look.
We have to go. With reruns?
Yeah, you know, this is one of them shows that just lends itself to the reactions. I guess that's maybe what it was. I had stronger reactions to things in the first episode, specifically on the scary side, and I thought the jump scares and the things they were building and the suspense and the not knowing worked a little bit better than when we kind of start to find everything out, and the horror jumps and the horror elements were, you know, not telegraphed, but were plain as day to see what was going on. So maybe that's what it was that took me out of it a little bit. I didn't react as strongly to this one as I did the first, but nevertheless, it doesn't mean it was a bad episode. And like I said, kind of rounds out that premiere in a way where it's like everything that I think Murphy needs to get set up for the season is now set. And I think we're ready to be off and running the rest of the way, which you kind of have to do with a shortened story. So let's dive into this thing, man, top to bottom, and just go through the whole episode. And as I said, we start right where we left off. Whitrock has just popped that pill. He's just gotten into the car, and as they're getting ready to leave to bounce out of P-Town, his head like basically explodes, and you get this really cool kind of like flashing montage where like you're seeing like a script being written, and you're seeing things and elements in and around a script where it's like, oh man, you can tell that his brain just found the story, and you're literally in quick flashes seeing that the story is pretty much whole already. And like as he comes out of it, you know, Rabe is like, "Baby, you okay?" He's like, "Yeah. Where's my computer? I need my computer." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He gets out of the car, he goes to the back, takes out the computer, and then runs inside. And like you're just like, "What? You killed a man inside of that house less than 24 hours ago. We're trying to get out of Dodge. Now you running back in to go right." And that's because this pill truly does unlock the writer's block for him. And he sits down and he is just, I mean, like going crazy, man. Like just laying it down. By the time Rabe comes in, she's like, "What is happening?" He's like, I see it. I see it all. I've got the whole story. I just need to get it down. And throughout the course of the episode, that's all Whitrock really does, man. He just writes and writes and writes. And by the time we get to the end of the episode, not only has he finished the pilot, which he did in 4 hours, and like Rabe even talks about, like he, as a writer, will like stress out and freak out just trying to get through 5 pages. And now he's got a whole pilot in less than 4 hours. And by the time you get to the end of the episode, he's written the entire script for the entire season. And how things play out, it's pretty crazy, and it plays into some of the things that, you know, will be revealed to us a little bit later on. Anyway, so he's in there, man. He's just banging away, man, at a pace that is not human. Like, it must have been a lot of fun for Whitrock to just be banging on the keys, making it look like he's typing stuff, but not. Like, I would love to see the screen. Like, did Whitrock get any words in? Did he type anything real, or was he just slamming the keys? But kind of love all of that. And as they come back in, and Rabe's trying to figure out whatever is going on, Alma takes out her violin and is like, if we're gonna be here, then I'm gonna keep practicing, because this little girl wants to be like first chair at like the New York Philharmonic, man. Like she has huge goals as a violinist, and she's like 8. It's crazy. She's so adult and she's so weird, and I really love the performance that Kira Armstrong's giving us here. That Alma is like one of the most fascinating characters to me, and where we end up with that character by the end of this one really has me going, I want to see what happens with her story. But she is struggling to get this one specific song right, and at that point, she's talking to Lily Rabe, and she's like, I saw Daddy take something. So Rabe calls him out on it, and as she calls him out, he's like, hold on, I'm almost done. And she's like, almost done? He's like, yeah, with the whole pilot, like I'm just about finished. And that's where she's like, it's been like 4 hours. That's nuts. And as he's working, I think when she calls him out on the pill, he puts together that Alma was the one that did it, and instead of going at Rabe, he turns his attention to his daughter, who in the first episode we established he has a very, very tight relationship with, and he snaps at her. It's like, you ratted on me because you're jealous because I've found inspiration and you can't freaking play that song that you're trying to play. And like, it hurt me. Like, I was like taken aback, like, damn, dude, like, she's a little girl. Like, he comes hard, and that's the drugs, the pill. That's one of the side effects. Kind of makes him sharp and a little bit of an a-hole, and that's what made that first episode so important, because you established that's not who Whitrock is as a character, specifically with his relationship with his daughter. So like, it really kind of gives you a good vibe that this drug is really not only unlocking things for him from a creative standpoint, but like is messing with his head and the way that he responds to things. But you jump to the next day, and he's up and he's working, and Alma comes down and he apologizes to her, and he seems a little bit more himself, like, okay, maybe the drug wore off, and kind of reaffirms, he's like, look, you are so much more talented than me, and I was out of line. I didn't mean what I said. Like, you are what it's about, you know what I mean? And you kind of get this, like, okay, we're back on okay playing terms, like, things are cool. And then Rabe asks him if he's eaten, because he's just been hammering away, and he hasn't. So she, brings him a turkey sandwich. She's like, look, I got you a sandwich. And he's like, oh, yeah, awesome. As she's putting him out on the table, he, like, just grabs it, and Rabe clearly thinks everybody's about to sit down and have lunch together. He goes right back to his desk, takes a bite, and immediately spits it out, and he's like, what is this, turkey? And she's like, yeah. He's like, oh, it made me sick to my stomach just now. And she smells it. She's like, it smells fine. And immediately I was like, oh, that's this pill that's making him crave blood. Like, the vibe you're getting at this point in the episode is that clearly the pill is going to be the thing that must turn him into a vampire of sorts. And you kind of get the vibe, like, as soon as he bites regular meat that's not red meat, and he's like, this is gross, get it away from me. You're like, yeah. He's kind of trickling down into that like vampire area where he wants red meat, red blood. So he doesn't end up eating the turkey sandwich. He goes back to writing. And later on, Rabe hassles him again. She's like, you have to eat something. Like, you have just been going nonstop for what almost feels like 2 days by this point. And he's like, fine. You know what? I need a break anyway. I gotta stretch my legs. I'll go out and find something to eat. I'm gonna run down to the market. So once again, we get a scene where you have, Whitrock going to the supermarket. Only this time, as he's walking, there's like a group of like 4 or 5 of those walkers that are just kind of hanging out, and they're all in black. They're all doing that weird twisty cracking motion with their arms and body parts, and he is immediately kind of creeped out, so he picks up his pace, and the next thing you know, these things just swarm on him, man. And you get like, he is fully surrounded, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, are they about to tear Whitrock like limb for limb? Is he about to turn into a vampire and kill all of these things? And the next thing you know is, as they're coming in, they're all weird, man. Like I said, the way the turkey, where they're moving, that, doing a lot of that stuff. And as they get in, they're like, and they kind of start to back off. And that was the moment where I was like, oh man, these things must be able to sense this pill. Like, whatever this pill is must trigger to them that, like, he's in the same realm that they are. Like, this is not somebody we eat. And when we learn exactly what the pill is doing, that whole sequence makes a ton of sense. But from a creepy standpoint, like, for a second I was like, oh man, like I said, just the motion and the way that they move, the sound effects, the sound design in these 2 episodes is fantastic, specifically around these walker type things. So really, really digging like the score and then the setup and then the sounds that just come with these things when they show up. But they clearly don't want anything to do with him. So he is able to get to the store, and while he's at the store, he's looking for something, and he catches red meat. And it was one of those things, like, when he went to the store, I was like, he's going to go and he's going to find red meat. That's what he's going to want. And he does. And he just starts getting all the red meat. And then as he's checking out, the supermarket attendant is like, hey, I thought you guys were leaving. He's like, yeah, we had to change of plans. I'm staying. And as soon as he sees all the red meat in his shopping cart, like, there's just a look in this clerk's face where it's like, he knows what's going on. Like, the town knows what is going on with these creature type vampire like things, and like clearly whatever is associated with this pill or just this phenomenon, like the people in town know. And he doesn't really say anything, but like you can tell. And then good old tuberculosis Karen shows up and freaks out on Whitrock because she can see that he's buying the meat. And she's like, those bloodsuckers got to you. I told you to stay away from them. She's cursing them off. And like, I love the volatile nature to Paulson's performance. But, it's one of those, like, he kind of just shakes off and he gets home. As soon as he gets home, he just starts laying all of it out. And it's like, he's got beef tips, he's got tenderloins, he's got New York strips, he's just got like every flavor of red meat you could have. And he starts cutting like the plastic off and just pouring the blood into like a container to drink. And you're just like, this was, as you watched in my reactions, this is one of the most nauseating sequences I think I've ever gotten in an American Horror Story. I almost vomited. It was so disgusting because he just everything just pours all the blood juice out and then drinks it, and you get the blood dripping down the chin. Like, I love the fact that while these aren't true vampires, Murphy is hitting all the things that you would get from the visual of a vampire. The pale skin, the sharp teeth. Well, at least with these like homeless ones, they're kind of like jagged teeth, but we'll see sharp teeth. We'll see him in this episode. But like even the blood just running down the corner of his lip. And then as he finishes that's not good enough for him. And you see it like start like, or I guess before he started drinking it out of, I think it's the blender, he starts like squeezing and wringing out the blood from the meat. And then once he finishes that, he puts it back on and then he loads all the meat in and blends it up. Thinking about it is making me semi-sick. He puts a strainer on the top of the thing and he pours out so all of the actual meat stays in the strainer and everything that ends up in the cup is just blood juice stuff, anything that's liquid and not still, solid. It was disgusting, man. Like, absolutely gross. But that satisfies his urge to feed. Like, he's no longer hungry after that, and he gets right back to writing. And what I love is as he's writing it, like, he starts to get emotional. And he's, like, almost weeping as he's writing. He's just like, it's so good. It's so good. And, like, there's a couple times where that happens with Whitrock, and every time they ask him to do it, I love it, man. Like, just seeing him react to knowing how good it is. And even points, like, there are moments where, like, Rabe is like, this is really good. But when he is laying into how good it is, she's like, this is the most arrogant and cocky I think I've ever seen you in your life. But I just think all of that is really funny. Then Rabe goes and talks to Alma about not leaving. She's like, I thought we were going to go. And, Rabe is just like, look, I've known your dad for a really long time. He tends to struggle through 5 pages. I've never seen him this inspired. Let's just wait it out for 24 hours. Let him get this out of his system, and then we'll make sure we leave. And the reason that Alma really wants to go is she's like, Dad's never mean to me, but he's mean to me here. Like, I don't like that. And that's her driving force. It's not the fact that Dad killed a dude in the house, and maybe Alma doesn't know that. Although there was a little bit of blood splatter that didn't get cleaned up, and I feel like she saw that. So I feel like she knows what's going on. She's a very, very, smart, astute kid. But, like, it's not that happening. It's not the fact that these creepy guys chased her and the mom. It's the fact that, like, Dad's never mean to me, and here he's mean to me. That's why I want to leave. And that's such a genuine kid thing, man. Like, as adult as she comes off, especially because of the way she plays, the way she talks, like that moment is like a pure kid moment where it's like, I don't care about anything that's going on. This place makes Dad mean. I want to leave. And I loved that because there's very little child to Alma as a character. So I love seeing that. And, Rabe, again, just kind of reassures her, like, once this is done, everything will go back to normal. Now, how about you help me with the redesign? What do you think of these fabric textures and stuff and colors? And like one of those things like where I was like, they're both the same color, and Rabe's like, they are not. Like, they are very two different, distinct colors. I love just getting a peek at like what Rabe does, because like I said, the focus through these 2 episodes, and specifically in episode 2, has really been Whitrock's character. So I like that we get her a little something. Then you see Peters and Conroy outside the house while Whitrock is typing away. And they are discussing the drug. Peters mentioned to Whitrock that the drug didn't have a name. The person who made it didn't come up with one. But he's like, it looks like he's taken to it, and they can see that he's pounding away. And like, yeah, but he's going to need to change his diet. Like, the way that he's going, it's not going to work. And Peters has this, like, coy little smile where he's like, speaking of food, you want to go, like, up to the boardwalk and, like, let's go get some snacks. What do you say? I'm like, you just know that they're about to go hunt people. But the way that he says it, and like it just, and that's the other thing too, like it's very clear that both of these characters are tied into this vampire story just from the coloration. They seem a little bit paler than everybody else, even though they do have skin tone and color. And they are just regular people. But like it's clear that they're tied into the story specifically because of the drug angle. But as they're going, Peters finally comes up with a name. He's like, yeah, man, it's like the Muse. He's like, that's what we should call it, the Muse. It's the perfect name for it because it is your muse. Like the drug is what inspires you to get down all this writing. So they go off to go get their snack or whatever, and inside, Whitrock and Rabe are talking about the show. As she's chopping carrots, and he's just talking about the story and the fact that he's never been this locked in. And as she's going, and you've seen this in the trailer, and I point that out because in the trailer it didn't really get me, but in the moment, like as she does it, the sound design around the cut and this, like, oh man, it made me squirm. It's one of those things where she was like, oh shit, and it's like, if you've ever cut yourself while you're chopping, I've almost taken off my nail more than I care to say. But like, it's one of those things where it's like you can kind of recover from that, even though it's like bleeding and stuff. So she's like, ah. And you see the blood, and then you see Whitrock's eyes light up, and he pounces on her, dude. He is just like, and she's like, what are you? Stop! What's you stop? This is ridiculous. Ah, you're hurting, and like has to like force him off her, and like the craving of blood is so severe, much like a vampire. The minute you see it, if you haven't had it, you gotta get it. So I loved seeing that, and that leads Whitrock to going back to Peters' place. And when he gets there, he's out there with a shotgun, and he's like, yeah, man, we're shooting ducks or quail or some sort of pheasant or bird, man. He's like, I'm shooting the shotgun off. And he's like, come on, let's go inside. So they go in, and this is where Peters lays out what the drug is. And he explains to Whitrock that there's a chemist that, makes this stuff. And if you, have any kind of talent whatsoever, it's going to enhance that and unlock that talent for you. So he's like, for us writers, turns us into gold mines, man. You were about to see all the money, all the awards. Like, you're going to love this stuff, man. And the one downside is that it kind of makes you crave blood. You kind of have this thirst. But you're about to make bank and like just be rolling in success, man. And Whitrock is like, this is just crazy. He's like, well, what about the other things? He's like, well, those are people who don't have talent. If you take the pill and you don't have talent, you turn into one of those things. And that's why their teeth aren't sharp, because you need to have it sharpened. These aren't actually vampires. It's the drug. And the drug, it kind of reminded me, I can't think of the name of it, but that Bradley Cooper movie where he's popping pills to like open up his mind and become like a super genius, except it's killing him at the same time. This is kind of the same thing. It's unlocking you, and while it's not killing you, it's driving you to act like a vampire. So it's a twist. You have these vampire-like creatures or people that aren't actually vampires, and it's an interesting twist. Like, I really kind of dug it from a conceptual standpoint, and I was like, all right, well, this is kind of fascinating. The thing I'm interested in is like, at this point, before we get to the end of the episode, I'm like, I just don't know where you take this from here. Like, where do you go? Like, if he's not a vampire and it's about the drug, and like even Peters says, like him and Conroy, they just do it, in spurts. They come up here for 3 months, they pop the pill, they turn out award-winning material, and they go back to their regular lives. Like, this is kind of a setup where, like, in the episode, it's like, well, now where do you go with that story? Like, do you advance it and do you come back? Does this become like like one of these things where Whitrock is just craving fame and stuff like that? Like, I don't know. I'm interested to see where we go next. And certainly by the time we get to the end, it sets up a little bit of a new twist that I'm like, okay, well, that's an angle I want to go and investigate in. But by the time that he finishes talking about, like how it turns people who have talent into super successful people and people without into those kind of creatures, Whitrock is just like, I'm out, man. And he throws the drugs at Peters and is just like, I'm gone. I don't want nothing to do with this. And when he gets home, he's talking to Rabe, and he gets a phone call, and it's Leslie Grossman, and she's like, I don't know what the Cape is doing to you, but where has this been your whole career? Like, you're just sitting on a gold mine. He's like, this thing is genius. At this point, he has sent the more than just the pilot. He sent, I guess, like, it might be the whole season that he wrote. And she's like, it's genius. Like, Joaquin Phoenix is already signed on. He said he would do it for free. He loves it so much. Netflix picked it up. Which I thought was kind of funny. Like, granted, it's on FX, but FX is also on Hulu. Like, you thought it would have, like, if you were gonna do something like that, you go, oh, Hulu's gonna pick it up. But that's where the storytelling is so important, because Hulu, who really is watching a ton of stuff on Hulu? Netflix is the biggest streamer in the world. Netflix wants an overall deal. Now you're rolling in money. And, like, as he's saying it, like, Joaquin Phoenix, Rabe, this is where I said Rabe, performance-wise, really started to kick in by the end of this episode, because she's had all-out fights with him. And then she gets to this moment, she's like, Joaquin Phoenix! I love Joaquin Phoenix! This is amazing, we're gonna be rich! Like, and all of a sudden, now, as, he's talking to Ursula, you see the benefits of the pill. The money is just going to come rolling in. The offers are about to come rolling in. Like, everybody is wanting to work. Like, he's about to go from, like, an average deadbeat TV writer to, like, someone who's gonna be, like, a showrunner almost, I mean, if you look at Marvel, the way they do their stuff, their writers are their showrunners, because they don't really have a showrunner per se. But nevertheless, that means by the time he gets to the end of that sequence, well, he needs some more pills. So he returns to Peters and Conroy and tells them that he got the deal, and they're like, no surprise. So here's some more pills, and you know what? We're going to take you with us. Like, you're coming with. And they go to take him on his first kill. And on the drive, they explain that, they kind of had a deal. Like, the old police chief was in line with them, and they could do what they want, and they could get away. But this new police chief that's here, she gets very, very suspicious and asks way too many questions. So we don't kill anybody in P-Town. Stick to the outskirts. Stick to just outside the town. You pick off the people who don't matter. And, it's one of those, I think they hold him at gunpoint to bring him with. And then they're kind of like, so he's like, all right, so how do you figure out who to target? He's like, well, that's easy. And I think it's Conroy. She tells him, like, you go online and say something like, like a Craigslist, and you look for things that are odd. Like this guy, he's selling, like, all of these high-end things that have nothing to do with each other, other than, most likely, they're stolen. Which means this guy's a criminal, probably somebody that nobody cares about, and especially out here. So we know that if we kill him, no one's going to ask any questions. So they go to this dude's house, and then they show up like they're going to, buy whatever that it is he's selling, and Conroy rips out a blade, and it's just like, nah, ain't what's going to happen. Boom, slits his throat, he drops. Her and Peters, like, start to go to town, and then, like, Whitrock is hesitant. But, like, he's got that craving, and now you're seeing the blood. And Conroy gets up and rips open the arm and offers it to him. And I think in my reaction, I was like, yeah, Daddy wants some now. And he dives right in to feast on this dude. And they drain him. And that's one of the other things, too. I love one of the back and forths with Peters and Conroy, where he's like, how much blood is there in the human body? And, like, Peters, like, it has the exact amount. He's like 8 point whatever quarts. We usually, between the two of us, can split that. And, like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it hits Whitrock. Like, that's terrible. Like, it's one person to feed both. Like, this is not, like, if you're just a regular dude, this is not good, man. Like, I'm going to be killing all these people. Like, I got to drink half a human being. But when it's there and it's presented, and he knows the benefits of the pill, he dies right into it. And then we jump to Caulkin and Paulson, who are hanging out in, it looks like Macaulay Culkin's like apartment. Looks like a loft that he's staying in. And they're there and they're talking and just kind of going back. And he mentions how he has a bunch of unfinished scripts. I think they're talking about Whitrock and like Peters and Conroy's characters and the writers and the drugs. And he's like, man, like I have all. And she's like, you didn't tell me that you were right. He's like, well, I didn't finish any of them, man. I have this thing where I just can't finish stuff. Like I'll start it and then I need to go do something else. He's like, but can you imagine like if this pill really did that? Like if I got talent, like man, look at all the money we could be sitting on. And like this is the first moment that Paulson kind of comes around. Like, yeah, that could be good. And Caulkin he stole off of Conroy the pills, and at first Paulson is like, you know how she gets around like these pills and these bloodsuckers, she ain't about it. But when Caulkin says that he has all these scripts that he starts writing but never finishes writing, maybe the pill could be a way for them to make money. And then if they're making money, they're not living in the filth and the squalor. And I kind of dig that concept and like where that could take those two characters. So like I said, about halfway through the episode, I was like, where do you go from here? Now all of a sudden Murphy's opening up some more doors for things that could be more interesting. Like what happens if Caulkin and Paulson take the pills? I believe they do take him, and Caulkin goes right to writing. You see him later; he is just writing like crazy. So he does have talent. He's not going to turn into one of those like Walker things. So. We jump back. Peters and Conroy, as they're coming, they either meet up with him again or they're coming back from the kill or whatever, and they're talking about the teeth. One of the problems that they've realized is that the teeth are a problem. And I think when they were getting ready to eat, you see them take out their teeth, and all their teeth are sharp and pointy. And because they're not creating fangs, they're just creating sharp teeth. The two front teeth are longer on both of them than everything else. Gives you a Nosferatu kind of a vibe, which I really, really dug from a visual concept standpoint. But they basically say, like, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like regular teeth, it just takes too long to rip through the flesh. Yeah, the sharp teeth, you can get right into these bad boys and drain them full on, and it's less messy. And they're like, and we got somebody, we'll send you to the doctor. And the doctor, of course, is one of my favorites, Miss Billy Lord, who is fantastic. And she, she's really quirky. She plays a quirky dentist, and it was giving me like, without being on the gas, was just giving me Steve Martin vibes from the Little Shop of Horrors. Like, it is one of those, like, all she needed was the gas, but she's on like that same kind of crazy demented level. But she basically talks to Whitrock and tells him, like, yeah, this is something that I invented. I was one of the early people on the pill, realized that, like, regular teeth weren't working, sharp teeth were the better way, so I'm filing everybody's teeth. She's like, I even got my own, and it just helps you tear through the flesh and makes everything more efficient. And I love this whole sequence because she preps Whitrock, and as she's doing it, you see Alma, while Rabe is working on the house doing interior design stuff, Alma goes through a bag and finds the pills and takes one. I freaked out because I was like, not the little girl, man. Like, with our luck, we see her playing this violin. We know she has talent, but maybe it's not the type of talent that the pill wants, and I thought she was going to turn into one of these things, and that is not what happens. There's talent in general, man. So she gets that freaking violin out, she is nailing the crap out of that song that she could not do in episode 1. And you get this really wonderful montage that syncs up to the song that she's playing on the violin, with Rabe doing housework, her playing the violin, and Whitrock getting his teeth filed. And the sounds, again, sound design in these episodes have been one of the things that really makes me kind of squirm. And the sound of the drilling on the teeth as they file them down and stuff. I'm not a dentist person. Like, the dentist freaks me out. I have a really bad gag reflux. I don't respond well to Novocaine. And dentist is not a pretty scenario for me. So all those sounds did not have me going well. But as that we kind of come out of that montage or whatever, Rabe comes in to talk to Alma, and Alma just goes straight bitch on her and flips the whole script. And like, much like Whitrock was in episode 1 to Alma, she just lays into Rabe and is like, you're jealous of me and Dad because we have talent and you don't have anything. You want to take us away, and we want to be here because we found something that inspires us. And you're just like, damn, man, like, this pill turns you into a big old a-hole. And like, it hurt me a little bit. Like, the way that like Whitrock laid into her and it hurt because you know that relationship is so tight. You've also seen that she has a very close relationship with her mom, and while it might not be as tight as with, Whitrock, to see her flip and just lay into this woman who looks like she's about ready to give birth any freaking moment, it hurt, And, it's just like, you don't want us to succeed, which clearly is not true, but, this drug is warping your mind in some way. And I'm fascinated to see where that takes us, especially now that the daughter took it. That was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, now you have a pathway to follow and go down that could be really, really interesting. And then, from there, we cut back, we see Whitrock on one of his regular runs, and this is one of those moments where I couldn't tell if, he's outside of Provincetown or if he's in Provincetown, but he comes under the boardwalk, and there's just a dude underneath it, and he's like, hey, man, you look for, I think I don't remember what he calls it, but it was like, where all the gay men hang out, man. He's like, you get any kind of dick you want here in the summer, man, big ones, little ones, fat ones, skinny ones, he's just going off. I'm like, we've already seen this type of an interaction with Whitrock and Caulkin, and Whitrock didn't really respond very well to it. And now here, Whitrock's been taught some things, and the next thing you know, he's like, I ain't interested in none of that. Whips out a blade, slashes his throat, dude drops in, and the camera goes to the next place. But it was one of those are they in Provincetown? And if they are, could that be the other thing that now makes this story way more interesting? Is the chief gonna find that body under the boardwalk? And is that going to lead back to Whitrock? I feel like the killing happened in Provincetown. And if it happened in Provincetown, that means that it's more than likely going to be a case of some kind. And that's how you get, the chief and, Adina Porter back into the story. So I kind of liked that it happened, even though at first caught me off guard. It's okay, now we've got another interesting thread that we can pull on and kind of go after. Then we go back home, and he's, it fades to a different time. He's working, still, and Rabe comes in from doing some of her own work and is like, hey, where's Alma? I haven't seen her anywhere. And he's like, oh, she said she needed some air, wanted to stretch her legs, so she went out. And this was the best part of Rabe's performance. She just lays into Whitrock. What do you mean you let her go outside? He's like, what? We let her walk down to the bodega in a rough spot in the city. I don't remember what area, but as soon as you said it, you were like, oh man, that little girl's walking 4 or 5 blocks in that area. She's a badass. But Rabe, rightfully so, is this isn't New York City. She's not dealing with street thugs. The thing that you had to kill that chased us, they're all over this friggin' town. You just gotta let her go walk around all willy-nilly? F you, motherfucker. She just, I loved watching her just lay into Whitrock, because while the drug is causing a lot of the issues that now are starting to circulate inside of the family, Whitrock was a pretty big prick to her a couple times. So I was like, you get him, Lily Ray, man. Lay into him. And then she's just like, that's it. I'm going to go find her. Slams the door, and Whitrock is just he kind of yells back at her, you just, what, just no respect for me? You don't give me any room to breathe or anything. They just have a full-blown fight. And you see Whitrock goes back to writing as soon as she leaves, and he's just kind of shaking his head unbelievable, man. This woman, I'll let the girl out the house for a little bit. And Rabe goes searching all over town. You hear her screaming Alma, Alma, where are you? Leads her all the way back to the cemetery, which is where they met that first walker-type creature thing. And she sees Alma, and Alma is, I'm going to try to stand up here, is this, over something, right by one of the graves. And you're like, oh, she is eating something that she shouldn't be eating. Don't go over there, Lily Rabe. And then you see one of them creatures again. And Rabe is just like, Alma, we have to go. And she grabs her, and as she turns, it's I don't know if it was a raccoon or a squirrel, but one of the roadkill things that she saw in the first episode. That's what's in her hand, and her face is just covered in blood. And you just have this look on Rabe's face, what the F? And you got the creature dude just looking on. And obviously, he's not going after Alma because I'm sure he probably could smell that she's on the pill. So we're not going to go after her. But it's one of those, again, episode ends where you expect it to probably pick right up. Is this thing gonna go after Lily Rabe? Is Alma gonna get involved and stop him? Where do you go? Like, that was the thing that the episode needed. While you did set up a couple threads, like, you needed something that was like, all right, now when we go into the next episode, we got something that we can dive into. And slowly you're starting to see, like, maybe the ways that this show could open up and take the story into a very interesting place. I'm not really entirely sure where they're going or how it will end or wrap up, but I'm fascinated to see how they do it and how quickly they do it. So there you go, man. That is all I've got on episode 2. We have now talked about episode 1 and episode 2. I just got to watch episode 3 and get caught up on that, and we will be up to date going into next week. So hopefully before the end of the weekend, I'll have episode 3 up. You guys will have all the reviews. I hope that I'll be able to interact with you, and if we're going to interact, we gotta know what you're thinking. So now it's your turn, man. I'm gonna shut up. I want to know what you're thinking. We got 2 episodes in. Feel free to talk about both of them. Talk about the story overall. But if you can, dive into what was working for you or not working for you in episode 2. Do you like the idea that these vampires aren't actually vampires? They're actually, formed or created off of this pill, and it only creates thirst when they're on the black pill. So is that an interesting twist for you? Does that work from a story standpoint? Were you hoping for more traditional type vampire things? That was the other thing too, where it was like, when you get to like the Alma bit, it's like, we've also kind of seen, like kid vampires already. So like the fact that it's not vampires makes it slightly different enough where I'm intrigued. But is it different enough from the storylines that we got in Hotel? For you, are you not really in it because it's sort of vampire light and kind of adjacent to what they did with Hotel? What performances are standing out for you? What do you think about Whitrock, Peters, Rabe, Conroy, even this little girl, Kira Armstrong? Like, anything you got, man, on American Horror Story, double feature, part 1, Red Tide, episode 2, and episode 1, man. I mean, you want to talk about both of them? By all means. This is a spoiler, involved review, so if you're going to do a spoiler, just mark it as such, because some people might come here for the front half that's non-spoiler. But anything you got, man, good, bad, indifferent on this episode of American Horror Story Double Feature, down below in the comment section. I look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you do, come hang out with the C-Man anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, or specifically want to be here for all my American Horror Story coverage. You haven't yet, you want to show a little love support? Hey, come join C-Maniac Nation, man. We have a good old time here, especially during American Horror Story, and it's easy to join. All you gotta do is jump over there, man. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. Until next time, C-Man's Cinema. Sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.